Welcome back. We are in the series of the future of project management with Mr. Benjamin Rebeske of CORBEAU and Project Success Academy. My name is Amanda Chambers. I am honored to work alongside Mr. Rebeske. And we have with us today Brandon Carpenter, who is also one of our team members at Project Success Academy. And I'm going to let Brandon introduce himself and tell us who he is and what he does. So Brandon,
All
I'll give
right.
it to you.
Thanks so much for the intro. So Brandon Carpenter. Currently right now working as a project manager with an organization called the Henry Jackson Foundation full time. I also do is work at PSA Project Success Academy as an instructor too as well. So that's something that I take to heart and love to do because also I was in the service to Air Force military as well, and a lot of my time there was as a educational trainer in my work capacity. So I love being able to, when I learn a skill, be able to teach that skill back to people who are in the shoes that I was previously in. So I do enjoy that aspect of things, and that's a little bit about me from Alabama originally. So roll tide when the football season starts. We'll see how we do there. Oh,
All right, stirring the pot
yeah,
already. All right, that's fine.
yeah, we'll see how things go, but that's me, folks.
Very nice. We're so glad to have you on. And so glad at the work that we get to do together. And I know Ben's going to talk a little bit about that as well. So Ben, let me give it to you for a minute. Let's talk a little bit about how you and Brandon got to know each other and how he came onto the team.
Yeah, delighted to do so. So Ben Rebeske, founder of Project Success Academy, an organization not just about training or for project managers out there, not just about getting your professional development units and checking the box. We all have to get our credit hours. I understand that to stay current. But the organization was founded by actual practitioners, real consultants from the CORBEAU side of the house. CORBEAU is a premium executive PMO implementation specialty organization. So our consultants, and I'm getting to Brandon here because I'm just so delighted to have him on that roster. Our consultants are doers, not just teachers. And I'm not saying I've had some of the best teachers in the world have specialized in academia, but it was important to us that our differentiator is taking what's going on out there in the trenches and really bringing it to other peers in the project management space, given all of the change that's been going on with technology, culture, employment expectations, economic changes. I think the marketplace has changed. And so we're trying to bring PMs and other project practitioners forward in that. And I couldn't do it if I hadn't had the great fortune to meet Brandon. So something that's near and dear to our heart as an organization is giving back to those who served us. So to the servicemen and women, military, both serving and those who are since retired or have moved on, we thank you. And that's a big part of our culture is taking those extremely capable, very skilled professionals and helping them translate that life into sort of the commercial private sector, if you will. And in fact, that's changing. It's a moving target. So they're actually at an advantage because they can take what they've learned in their service space and that there's no bias about, oh, I've been in the working space and everything's changing. It doesn't matter. It's almost like a fresh start and a great opportunity. And I was blessed enough, Brandon, to meet you, and you just knocked my socks off. One of the things we do is we have a very rigorous screening process. Is this person empathetic? Do they have emotional intelligence? Are they active listeners? Do they actually invest in the people with whom they work? And do they invest in the mission? And do they, of course, invest in the students for real? And I have seen you real time take personal time, email, one-off calls, direct conversations, showing of understanding. And it just, man, it was just everything that we hoped that a training organization could bring. And just as a man of leadership and character, I am delighted to have someone with your working history who can relate to so many of our other students and other professionals that are just starving to learn from what you have to bring. That I'm just honored to have you working with us on this mission to bring the new way of working, to project professionals everywhere, man. So I was so blessed to meet you. Gosh, it's about a year now. Just every time you get on the microphone, man, you just have presence, and I love it.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Ben.
Yes. And thank you, as Ben said, for your service. Thank you for all that you've done and continue to do. As one of the things that I really love about this organization is how much they give back and all the things that we collectively do for those who have served. And so it's a really important part of the mission of Project Success Academy. We set aside some specific courses for that. And so it's pretty cool. If you haven't checked it out and you're watching or listening, go on Project Success Academy and check that out. And so in light of that, Brandon, tell us, what is one lesson that you have learned that completely changed how you lead projects?
So great question. So if I really had to think on it too as well, I think I lean back to, my younger years and, being in the military and having, things like, SOPs, what was DOD, probably now DOW guidance, the Department of Defense guidance or Department of War guidance. There's certain levels of, hey, you can do this, but you can't do that. It's very guided too as well. And so I translate that and bring it over to the project management space. Earlier on in my career, having those left and right limits, great, good, fine. But sometimes I found myself too, when I'm working on a project, reviewing the project charter and looking at our scope, looking at our, our baseline, looking at our time constraints and saying, hey, we must hit this no matter what. And that was, I think, pulling from me too as well, good and bad, because it was, I think, a military mindset I was bringing into something that was a little bit more rigid than it needed to be. What about the adaptability? So that's the key word I'm going there, is adaptability. And that's something that I wish, early on in my career, that I was able to, adapt to quicker, not just solely just sticking to, hey, because we've outlined it this way, we need to continue it that way. We can
Right.
change, we can adapt to the situation. And I think that's the biggest thing that I had to learn earlier on in my career.
Yeah, that's great information. Ben, I know you've got some info on that as well.
Yeah, I share that sentiment. I think we kind of throw these terms adaptability around, but and I think you're hinting at this, Brandon. So, let me know if I'm going down the wrong path. But from the SOP standpoint, y'all have been indoctrinated into a rhythm and a capability that honestly, I didn't come from a military background. And a part of me sees that as a gap because we were just kind of thrown into corporate life. And it's like, here's a job, go shadow someone and do some paperwork and put together some PowerPoints. But there was no clear understanding of sort of like a mission, like why an SAP was systematically devised. I had to learn that later in my career. And I wish I'd
Mm,
sort of been exposed to the concept of, this step happens here, so this step can happen here, and that swim lane is dependent on that. And then you've got to sign off for safety
right.
and wellness here. Like I didn't understand that concept of systematic orchestration as much as I could have. I had to learn that in the trenches as a project manager. And certainly we could agree that the curriculum in PMBOK talks about it, but application in the real world is so very different, I think, than reading it in the book. But I share that to say that I actually agree, but just saying something needs to adapt or that something needs to be agile, I think people are probably rolling their eyes a little about that. So I'm going to cheat and turn it back on you a little bit. With your students and some of the presentations you've done with recent PMI chapters, can you give a specific example of what you mean by agile? Because I don't want people to just flippantly say, oh, I have to adapt. Everybody says that. I don't know what you're talking about. Could you share what you think an example of good adaptation might be in the real world?
I think, I think I'll reflect too as well on, like, my something I had to deal with recently, not too recently, maybe like a year ago. A lot of the work that I currently do, it kind of ties into federal contracts. And so when we're working some of these federal contracts, we have to follow their guidance too as well when we put on. For example, we do training workshops for providers who are in the military or they're attached to the military. And so the adaptability comes into, we have X amount of people who are scheduled to attend some of these workshops, right? But because of, for example, some of the situations that happen with federal government in terms of, let's say, for example, the Doge situation where a lot of folks were getting cut from their jobs, that decreased the number of folks that we had attending our workshops, right? This is a, just an example I could think off the top of my head. But because of that, we were trying to meet certain, you know, metrics of number of personnel attending, right? But we had to adjust that and adapt to that due to the things that we couldn't control, which was federal mandated guidance that was coming from, some of those external situations that were happening that we didn't plan for, but a lot of that, when I say adaptability, is things that you don't typically plan for. And then it becomes a situation, and then you need to adapt to that particular situation. So that's where my mind goes to being adaptable. We have a plan in place, we have guidelines, but in the guidelines, it doesn't really state, hey, here's what you do when Doge comes online. And we have folks who are losing their jobs, but we have metrics saying that we need to hit a certain amount of, folks. So now let's adapt to that situation, because that's a new, that could be a new risk if we continue on.
I totally agree with that. Thank you for that example, because, okay, I'll throw it. So say it's Bama, right? Roll Tide, they've got audibles, right? You line up the offense, you read the defense, like, oh man, they're looking blitz, like we can't run the play we've called. You've got an entire playbook of SOPs, of project management approaches, things you've been doing, ways you teach the class, but you know that there's always going to be these circumstances. And the example you gave, the Doge thing and upcoming changes. So it's a balance, if I'm hearing you right, is yes, you got a plan. Yes, you practice these things, but it gets bigger than that, because it's also the skills and capabilities of the ability to think on your feet, knowing that there are possible scenarios, right? A blitz call, right? That could mix things up. And you can't just be blindsided by that. You have to be able to respond. So how was my analogy? Am I even close? Calling audible?
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah, I love it. I relate to it all.
Okay. I had to throw you one, man, because I do love the game. Well, let me ask you this then. If I wanted to up my skills then as a professional who's coming from a military background, how do I learn something like that? Is it textbooks? Is there a place I can go to get exposed to that in the real world? Like, how do you make sure that your mind starts to see, right? Starts to see the need for that agility, for that ability to adapt. How have you told your colleagues? How have you personally built the muscle of adaptability?
Okay. That's a great question. Great question.
Dude, I'm here to pick. I'm here to pick your brain, because I know you've done all this, right,
Yeah,
man? This is for me
I
learning.
love it. I love it. Yeah, yeah. You know, they say they say some people are. Here's the quote I've heard. I heard some people are born leaders, right? But leadership and good management and good leadership is a learned trait. I believe. I believe you can do that by learning, by really diving in, viewing the people who are around you, and I kind of equate that to the adaptability piece. So for adaptability, for me, in my opinion, what I feel like how somebody could actually learn that, get better in that, grow that muscle is by looking around you, being a sponge, absorbing what looks right, or what you perceive as, okay, for example, if you want to be a project manager, what does a good project manager look like to you, right? You're gonna have situations where nobody's project out here, if they're doing project management in the real world, has went. I haven't seen it from A to Z without any audibles happening. Any audibles happening. It could be the smallest. So how did that person adapt? If you're working as a junior project manager or associate or something like that, looking at your lead or senior or a mentor, doesn't even have to be inside of your particular shop or internally. What does right look like to them? And observing, I think that's been a big thing for me as I grow and as I grew into the space. I observed. I've seen great mentors. Since I've been on with PSA Academy, I kind of seen how you operate too, Ben, along with Greg.
Yeah.
And so like those are things that I say, okay, I'm gonna pull that tool inside of my toolkit as a project manager for the future. And not just like, a tool that I perceive as like a personal tool of, hey, here's how you deal with certain adaptive situations, but maybe even some of the tools that we utilize here about, one thing we do here at PSA when we have a meeting is always, if it's an hour meeting, it ends at that 45-minute mark, or it should, to give people 15 minutes back. That's some of the things that I was reading into, and I said, hey, that makes sense. That meeting this is a small situation, but that you're taking care of your people at that point, because they may be rolling into another meeting after that. Right. And
Right.
giving them that 15 minutes back just to decompress, get their brains together. I think not everybody does that,
Yeah,
and
I
that's
wholeheartedly agree with that. Something that I thought was really forward thinking when I came on with this team was that, there's, as much as we're capable, right? We try to give that break, because you might have had just 6 meetings all day and you have to go to the bathroom or get a cup of coffee or something. And so if nobody lets you out of class early, you don't have time to go. And so I think it's important too. And I'll brag on Ben a little bit too, because since you brought that up, Brandon, I would say the same thing. Like there's things this past year working with him, alongside him, that I've learned. And we had a situation, I don't know, about 6 months into me working with him, where it was high emotion for the whole team, right? Everybody was on the edge of their seat and super, super rightfully in their emotions about a situation. And Ben just came on and he was just deflated the whole thing. He's like, look, we have to take a step back. We have to look at the whole picture. We have to see what we can find out, and then we can react from there. And sometimes we don't always do that, right? Sometimes we're just so quick in our emotions to react to a situation. And so it's important that we have a leader who can step back and say, hey, and people respected you in that, because we all respect you and how you lead us. Because that could have gone a different way. If we didn't respect you and what you have to say, if you didn't lead well, we could have been like, well, we don't care what you say. We have these feelings about this. And so it's important, like you said, Brandon, to adapt to the good attributes, because we all have bad leaders too, right? And so don't take on those attributes of the leaders who aren't leading well. I want to go back too real quick to something that Ben said about having a
okay.
mission. So and I'm not from the military, but I'm so honored and blessed to work with you guys and have family that has been in the military as well. And so when you are in the military, you have a pretty clear mission. Things could change a little bit, but for the most part, you have a fairly clean mission. Like we're going from A to B. That's the plan. We're going to do our very best to execute from that point. Unfortunately, sometimes in projects, we don't have the clear definition and the clear plan. We're going from A to B because we might be on a roller coaster 3 times before we get there. I think we endeavor to have a clear mission, but sometimes I think that that's left out at the very beginning, and that's where we lose a lot of project managers. And they kind of get in the weeds of things because we don't give them that upfront. So I love that about the military, that there does tend to be a clear mission there. So I'll let you kind of speak to that a little bit too.
Yeah, yeah, I agree 100% in a sense too as well. So for me, when like guidelines aren't clear or we need some type of clarification, I look at us as project managers nowadays are like we're the connectors
Mhm.
in a sense of, yeah, we need to be pushing the team to meet certain metrics and certain goals to keep the project moving along. But we also are the people who are articulating what the issues are. And and if we're going to articulate what those issues are, we need to have a clear understanding of what our priorities are and, and, and how we can connect those issues. So us being, and essentially the hub point where it comes to, stakeholders, our team, maybe even, external teams that we need to communicate with, we need to press for clear understanding from if it isn't clear from, those stakeholders, so that we can communicate that to our team effectively, because ultimately what that does is it hinders the job. Somebody
Yeah.
might not be clear on a certain aspect of what they need to do. So that's the biggest, I guess, takeaway for me. If I'm unclear on something, my guidance would be to, all right, how do we get that unclear, right? So that we can be effective as a team. Kind of broad speaking there, but I think communication is all about communication and how you communicate it. And that's a trait too. That's a learned skill too, because how you communicate could cause you problems or it could make your life easier. So effective communication, I think, to get clear understanding so that you can effectively move your project along.
Yeah, absolutely. Ben, you have anything to follow that one up?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I know in
Mhm.
on the practice side, this isn't necessarily on the academic side, Brandon, where you're helping your students. But I know on the consulting side, that's a core tenet, right? It's communication and or it's within the culture of the organization. You have to honor that as well. So if it's military, you might be coming and you can tell people better than I could. Um, there was a clear line of communication and a way in which you did it, and it was written or it wasn't. It was verbal or it wasn't. Like there was even body language and posture. Those things don't necessarily carry over right into the working world. And so one of the funniest quotes I ever had from a colleague in the military was, right, he's like, I'm just amazed at how in the working world, I have a job now. People work and they work and they work and they don't get results. And for some reason, that's okay.
Hmm.
Like that's just right. Like if and this is certain airports, like if you're supposed to service an aircraft and there's a nut rolling around on the tarmac, there's a problem,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
not done, right? The mission is not accomplished. I'm not saying that that kind of rigor is needed in every case, but when you think about communication and systems of the communication, I think people are at a disadvantage. So I agree with you anecdotally that communication is important. So we work very hard to first listen and understand the
Yeah.
culture there. And that's not easy to teach. Coming in knowing that you're extremely capable, that you've got this entire book of capability, either the PMP the PEPBOK or Agile Manifesto or the Scrum Alliance methodologies. You've got your
Mm.
certification. You've been brought in as a very talented member of the team. Hardest thing in the universe is to zip it and walk. This gets back to the being agile thing you talked about. You just told us about watching. And I think, ironically, in communication, one of the best things you can do, watch who's interacting with whom, because you're not going to get a clear org chart every time. You're not going to get a clear understanding of how people want to be communicated with. I've gotten in trouble for putting things in writing because it was viewed as rude or undermining or going around somebody. Like, and I just send emails all the time. And so we kind
Yeah.
of teach people to stop, listen, and then explore. Hey, is this kind of communication okay? Hey, can I go to our director? If this is
Right.
going to affect them and they, it's in their spending limit. We ask a lot of questions because we already know, like when you come into a project as a consulting team member, you were brought on there for a reason. The hard part's over. The interview's done. You
Mhm.
got the job. They need you, man. They need you to be that warrior, that specialist. What they don't necessarily need is us stubbing our toe or kind of going out of bounds and doing something that's considered rude or accidentally over communicating to an executive. Those are the
Mhm.
nuances. You just have to be so patient and you have to stop and watch and listen. And if you can, check with a colleague. Hey, you know, uh, Brandon, I was going to go to the HR director on this one, but just because I did that at the last company, is it the same thing here? Like it's okay to
Yeah.
ask questions, right? To probe a little. So I think that taking yours kind of to the next level. I don't know if you have similar stories, but that cracked me up when I just heard the story. Like, yeah, I got out of the military and then I got into the workspace, and I was like, I was just amazed. Like, you just didn't get something done. It was like, okay, we'll just do it tomorrow. And he was like, you can do that?
Yeah.
That cracked me
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's true. And I'm not saying, I'm just saying that's a difference in culture, right?
Yeah.
Old Ben would have been like, it's not done. It's not done. We're all in trouble. And I would have been notifying people all over the place. And that would be a
Right.
huge, they'd be like, get this Ben guy out of here. He's over. What are you talking about, man? Calm down.
Yeah. That's the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. So, since we're talking about the future of project management, let's segue into, since we're talking about communication in this particular portion, let's segue into how are the two of you, and we'll go to each of you on this one, how are the two of you utilizing AI to implement better communication within your teams? Brandon, I know if you're working in any of those that are working in the government sector, that's a little harder, right? Because there's still some restrictions there. And so let's just talk a little bit. We'll go with you, Brandon, first. How is the AI helping or hindering with the communication that you're doing now?
A positive for us with artificial intelligence and AI is it can help, and it does help in certain aspect when it comes to, for example, there's certain marketing material that, we kind of developed, and we used to utilize, Canva, and you'll have somebody there kind of like plugging and playing and things of that nature. But now with certain products, you can give it a prompt or a script, and you can have, 10 days, or, a week or a month worth of content already kind of ready for you in that aspect. So those are some of the things that help with our organization. Is we utilize a lot of Google Workspace. So Gemini is something that's integrated into to what we utilize, at least internally for us. And you know the limitations with Gemini, we don't have the authorization to utilize some of those other tools that maybe is better for certain aspects of maybe something that we need. So that can be a constraint if your organization is kind of limited to what they can use because of, organizational policies. But another thing too is I think it can create, utilizing it's the first pass with can be with AI. I think, whether it be something like you working through a breakdown structure or with risk register or something like that. You can generate a lot of stuff. Are you working with big data? You're feeding it, right? But is it hallucinating, right?
Right.
Is something wrong? So I think the issue is a lot of people, they feed it so much that it can become intimidating, because, all right, do I just hand this off to the next in line, this product to go forward? Or do I go down the line with this massive product that I just produced within 5 minutes, which looks pretty good, and review it to make sure there's no issues? It doesn't look like there's an issue. It's a lot of information. And so it can get messy in that capacity. I think, it can be done well, but you need to set some of the limitations of what you feed it, because it can become overwhelming and intimidating. I guess
I know
that's my
Ben's chomping at the bit to respond to that, so I'll let him. He's the AI guru.
No, I completely agree with that. I think that any perception that humans wouldn't be in the mix, or that, there's an easy button. Yes, but not exactly. And, I won't speak as much in the, the secure federal, the military space. Yes, I understand. It's usually, those tend to be Gemini environments. I know that other agencies might use other AI engines, but you are quite restricted. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Obviously, for security, privacy, defense, all of that, that's necessary. The challenge when we talk about communication, and actually it goes back to SOPs, and I think it's an advantage that I think our military friends don't know they have. If you're already thinking in that sort of swim lane, here's my duty, it goes to my super, and then it comes back to me, and you treat a lane, you have a new lane, you got an AI button. And it could be prompting, but nowadays it's even simple agents. A simple agent, I'll give you my favorite example. If you have Google, it's probably taking meeting notes, right? Assuming it's allowed and you've been given permission and it records the transcript. How many of us have? I have hundreds of megabytes, if not a gigabyte, of just recordings just sitting there. Like, when am I going to get to them? That's an example in the swim lane. We had a meeting. There was likely outcroppings of responsibilities, of accountabilities, of actions that need to get done. That's an agent lane to me, and it's not intimidating. And most of us, no matter our security level or no matter our tool, could probably automate. Okay, great. Don't just dump it in meeting notes and send an email. That's step 0. It's not really step 1, because that is like having a megaphone. Hey, do an action item. Sent one time. You don't know if they got it. It's sitting in their inbox with 1,000 other unread emails. Half of them are spam. You don't necessarily know. And I'm not saying those engines aren't helpful to generate meeting notes. But you're a project manager. You're a project practitioner. You're the next level of success leadership. And to do that, just take it one more step. Give it an SOP. I need you to parse out who was in the meeting, what were the takeaways, what are the action items, and what is the next? Why did we have that meeting? How many of us have had the meeting of, and it's meeting déjà vu? Didn't we just talk about this 2 weeks ago? I feel like I'm having literally the same meeting again, the same decisions, the same action items, right? So what's the next? Have it say, hey, I propose you guys have another meeting. Here are the action item, and they give it back to you, to your learning, your responsibilities in that little baby step in an SOP. But it's an opportunity to accelerate those mechanical processes that you might have had to do manually. Let's be honest, when you had spare time because you got other high priority things to do. And I think it keeps momentum because now it gives you an opportunity at the project manager or project professional or even an admin or it doesn't matter where you are in your career, program manager, portfolio manager, wherever. Don't underestimate the power of being fed the next. Because now you're a leader, you're a driver. You're not just an informer. You're not just, hey, Amanda, did you see that I sent you an email 2 weeks ago with my automated note taker? Now you're back in the driver's seat. You have an opportunity to really drive this towards the next mission, to the next success, to keep momentum and get to the next. You can, in your mind, you're already mapping out where things are going. Why would you not want to have a little bit of fun? You've got a, almost like, I'll call it, you've got a teammate, if not an employee that you can make agentic, help you with communications. Even if it helps you take the lead on communications, imagine the value you can add. It's increasing your potency, man. I get so excited about it because for the first time in our history, all the things that the book tells us to do, all the things we already know we can't do, we never had time for it. I don't have time for all the work, man. It's exhausting. I got to get another meeting. I got to get this executive steering committee done. I've got to, develop the next operating model for the new hires that are coming in. I don't have time to do meeting notes. Good heavens almighty, that's not a good use of my time. But if you take that and you turn it into something automated that becomes ammo for you, that makes you that much more potent as a leader and a driver, I just get excited about it. So, I mean, that's my perspective. I'm serious. I think a lot of our those of you who have served in the military, you really do have a mindset advantage that I don't think you have. Because I have to teach my new, and I mean this with respect, college graduates or even consultants like myself that have been a long time, we have to learn those skills. We have to understand the architecture, how the pieces fit, how the communication change works. Where y'all have been learning that since you started the military, right? So how can you take what you know, turn it into ammo? And I think for the first time, if you're willing to plug in to play with these AI tools, even if it's locked down, man, your potency just goes up exponentially.
I agree.
Go ahead.
Well, let me flip this around. So knowing, we challenge you and the other instructors now to play with AI when you can. Are there any AI sort of tools or toys, if you will, that you've played with that you feel have given you a little bit of an edge? Is there anything you've been playing with lately you want to share with the viewers?
Yeah. I think for me, it's kind of seeing what's available and what works best in which setting. Personally, for me, so going over to Copilot in a sense when it comes time for giving a first pass or giving ideas or brainstorming when it comes to presentation creation, right? So that's what I kind of been handling on that front. But then when it comes to for me, I utilize Claude a lot because I make those different those different models within those different projects with those different left and right limits, and they're essentially I look at it, they're a whole person with a whole degree and whole experience. I have a marketing SME, a business co-owner SME with those different models, and ChatGPT, that was I think the first one that I was able to get my hands on, and that has grown substantially. But I think for me, it depends on the setting. Claude, I love, and I use the most of, and right now that is, and until the next, thing. But what I've come to see is, there are so many tools out here, and I think, when it comes to AI, we're living in an age where it's a race to, like, I feel like who has the best this, who has the best that. And so, it's I think, as project managers, we have to look at, I don't know. I think I have to look at what can I pull from each one of those, to kind of benefit me in my workspace, and my limitations right now. So, with Gemini, I can do a lot with Gemini within my workspace, but it's condensed to, what's inside of the workspace. So, but personally, I love Claude.
So, I'm going to ask you a question. You just kind of answered it, but I love that you spoke to that too, because I think it's very much the same. And Ben has really pushed a lot of us to learn these different things, which is really, really great. But I find the same thing. It's kind of like having different employees, right? They have different strengths and different weaknesses. What one of my ladies can do, the other doesn't really prefer to do. It's not really her genre or her thing to do, and vice versa. And so the same thing kind of with the AI is like, it, from my seat and the things that I do, like for instance, we're recording in an AI right now in Riverside. And so this particular program has its own strengths and weaknesses. Now, if I ask this particular program, which it has some minor asking capabilities, but I can't ask this program to help me with graphic design. Whereas there are other programs that I can help, that will help me with graphic design and be forward thinking in those things. And then there's other programs like Claude that does really, really great at some things. Again, not great at graphic design. It will
Yeah.
map some things out for you and stuff. But so it's really learning, what does this one do versus this one? What is this one good at versus this one? And then training our people. I had an interview with a gentleman this morning who I'm very seriously considering, and we had kind of the same conversation. I'm like, you'll have access to all the things. You will have to choose what you want to use, because it might be different for me than it is for you. You may get it to do something that I can't get it to do. And so we train them, we equip our people, and we train them on those things. And then we allow them to use it safely, like Finn's done with us. And then we have another person and another person, per se, with these AI agents that we can utilize to get things done. One thing that I've noticed, so I love to write, like handwrite cards and letters and stuff like that. And so it's really freed up my time that I can turn around and write an actual thank you card and things like that, because I'm not constantly having to be in the
Right.
weeds. So I can kind of
Right.
go backwards with the forward. So it's kind of like an interesting take on it. So I've been asking in these interviews and some others as well, whenever we start talking AI. So, and it's been pretty flat or pretty the same across the board, but I'll ask you guys currently today, which is currently July 23rd of 2026, what is the best AI in your opinion?
I want to hear your thoughts, man.
No way, man. I ain't giving you no lifeline. Come on, man. Jump in the cold
Yeah.
water. Get in.
No, I really enjoy Claude, but you hit something on the head for me. Like when it comes to graphics, and like if you're looking for that type of thing where you want some type of, give me a realistic image of X, Y, and Z. It's not going to be able to produce you that, but it'll produce you a really nice framework. But for me, I think I personalize Claude so much that now I'm sold. I'm in it, and I can do so much with it. And for me,
Well, just so you know,
Copilot
that's
was
the
that.
number one answer currently. So, but
Yeah.
we'll see what Ben has to say today. He might have changed
Yeah.
his mind today. I don't know.
Yeah, I always don't. I don't just always give a straight answer, right? So today's daily driver is still Claude. I would argue that Codex from ChatGPT is extremely strong and capable.
Now, I'm
Okay.
very surprised to hear you say that, Ben.
Yeah, well, I don't use it as much, and a lot of that stems from using an analogy why many people would be Android versus iPhone.
Okay.
I'll get a lot of trouble for this. Like I'm iPhone. It's not because I necessarily believe it's the better product. They got me in that ecosystem. So I will say I'd been using Claude. So a lot of my profile information, my settings, my skills, my automations were set up there. Now Codex can transpose some of those. In fact, even Copilot and some of the others can as well. Like Gemini is outstanding. It's really strong. Cheat code, by the way. I do this very, very often. I'll have a Claude session and say, open up a Google Chrome browser, go to my Gemini account and use Nano Banana, or use, it's not called Notebook LM anymore, but I'll have it open up and it'll run queries and do stuff and then bring it back into Claude. Because Claude is, we just talked about this, it's great maybe for agentic processing, but man, just not really good at the canvas and the graphics and things
Right.
like that. But if you have it act as an orchestrator that uses other tools, right, that are specialists, well, then you've kind of become a company commander, right? And you're calling on those that are specialized, right? So
Uh,
military analogy, right? Everybody in a squad probably has a specialty, using a special vehicle, special munitions, whatever it is. It's the same thing. This whole world of AI is open to us, but you might have one command center or cockpit that you choose. And so that was a long answer, but for me right now, Claude is my daily driver, but it's not the only tool I use because I have it call my other accounts as
It's
well.
getting hard to answer just one now, isn't it? Because they're all
well,
kind of like we're
Yeah,
getting on, but I think the
they're
same.
interlinked, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think I love the analogy of iPhone versus Android because I kind of feel the same way. It's like you're either on one side or the other, but it doesn't really have to be that way. Because I'm really trying with our team to implement, like, use what works for you for that application that you're doing at the time. Because they're not all the same. And even still, like, I would say at this particular juncture where we are now, so for graphic design and stuff, ChatGPT is doing a lot better.
uh,
Claude just can't. It just can't yet. There's certain things that it can, but not to that level. But then again, I would caveat that when you're in ChatGPT, there's a lot of prompting, and then it does get to the point where it's like it can't do anything but this one thing, and so you're just like, forget it. I don't want to talk to you anymore for a little bit because it just gets stuck in
Wait,
itself.
you get mad at your tool too?
Yeah. But I think they each have, just like humans, they each have their strengths and weaknesses, and we just kind of have to take those as they are. But be ever so grateful for the opportunity to kind of have that, those resources. I think it's become a really cool and given us the ability to do so much more and to communicate more effectively in certain things, right? Because like Ben was saying, there's so much information coming in all the time. We can't really keep up with it all as effectively as we should. So, all right, so we're getting, go ahead. I don't want to
no,
interrupt
I
you.
was gonna say, Amanda, I think I like that new analogy you just plugged in, which with ChatGPT, as in it seems like ChatGPT is like that X you can't get away from and always have to go back to.
There you go. Yeah,
Yeah, you're having trouble with
you
that one.
kind of want to, right? But then I mean, we can't, if we're being honest, it's just so easy. It is probably the easier one
Yeah.
to communicate with.
Yeah.
And I'm also like a huge fan on all of them of like being able to talk to them because I'm a talker, if you couldn't tell. And so I can just spew into it and then it understands, to a certain extent. And then I will get mad and then I'm like, stop, I don't know what you're doing. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing. You just kind of, our whole team, I think, especially because we're in the marketing and the graphic design and things like that, and the social media and stuff. And so I would say for that level of stuff, chat is superior as far as
Yeah.
that's going. However, when you get in the other side of what we're doing, as far as like, when we're still like, if I'm setting up a book to go to publish or something, Claude is, I mean, light years away and can just, pump out exactly what I tell it to, exactly how I tell it to do it. And Claude listens better. Claude must be a woman, I think. And then ChatGPT
I'm not touching that. No touchy.
because Claude will just do what you tell it to do, but it's very, very specific, very, within the lines. So no, that's just a fun thing. All right. We're getting short on time. So let's just talk about, before we wrap up, if you were, both of you, this is a question for both, for project managers listening today, if you could improve one skill this year from now until this time in July of 2027, what would you tell them to focus on?
Uh, for me, maybe it's two things, and so like first, I would tell them and to grow the skill of communication and articulation, because as a project manager, I think in a lot of situations you're gonna be the front line using those military terminologies between whether your team gets what it needs or whether they do not get what they need because of how you articulate and communicate that across stakeholders from different layers, because everybody thinks their need is important, but if you have a bigger viewpoint of what you need to get done within this project, how you communicate that is going to most times I think cause the reaction of it to happen or get into action of happening. So being able to communicate, because your team's going to be looking for you to do that for them, as you should, as that servant leader. And then, being able to, the second thing is, and the things that we're talking about, enhancing your skill sets, right? Because the delineating factor, I think, for the future in project management, and even with the PMBOK and the PMIs going towards it, and they're, implanting it, within the skill sets with AI governance and things like that. The differentiator will be the PM who knows how to use it and the PM who does not, and so getting in early to grow that muscle, and it's only going to get stronger, and at least from, I don't know y'all viewpoints on this, and I'm sure it's roughly the same. AI is, to a certain capacity, is here to stay. It's not a fad, it's not a phase, it's here to stay. And so we have to get used to using it. And going back to what we first talked about in the earlier part is adapting.
Look at you, man, coming full circle. I don't think I can beat that.
I know.
That was just a beautiful, see, this is why this man is such a great teacher. He just brings everything back. Okay. All right. How can I beat this? All right. I'm actually going to go a little bit divergent. You might expect me to say you need to learn a technique or you need to take, technical class. It's actually none of that. I'm going to say, I need you guys to focus on your belief. It is a belief thing. Here's where I'm coming from. The market has changed forever. Fire has been invented. Pandora's box has been opened. It's like the days when the internet came out. What, Brandon, you just said, AI is here to stay. Here's what I need you guys to believe. Everyone out there, every professional, every middle management, every leader, every seasoned person, every college graduate, it doesn't matter where you are in your career. I need you to believe that you are needed, that you have the capabilities. We could have all the tools in the world until I have your imagination, your experience, your relationship management, the way you interact with others. All of it's useless, right? If there's no one at the steering wheel that knows where to go and how to operate the vehicle, it doesn't matter. And it's so important because I'm guilty of this. I woke up very, very dismayed one day. I'm like, they don't need project managers. They can replace this. They can automatically do meeting notes. They can automatically do status reports. Like, what do I do? And I started to question, and I'd see these news reports of all these layoffs, all the white collar, everything's going to be automated. I need you to believe it is not. And executives are starting to see this. But the deal is, once you believe that you actually are still the talent behind the AI, then you got to get behind the AI. You still got to get in the car and drive it. So there's a little bit of homework, but I need you to first put the notion that I'm going to be replaced, or I can't get that job, or I just came out of the military, I'm never going to be a fit. None of that. It's all garbage. That's wrong. You have to believe that you're even more valuable. Never before in the history of man has the quote automatic creation of the journey from your imagination and your abilities to create, the journey to realizing that has never been shorter. Right? Think about 100 years ago. If you could even read and write and you were to write a book, it would take months and years. You can spit out the ideas of your thoughts into a book in 30 minutes. Proofread it. You can now publish yourself. So that gap has never been smaller. And I think for some reason we're disillusioned that we think, oh, well, I'm no longer needed. No, you're the creator. You're the reason for the tool. Before, we got rid of all the noise in between. Now you can go get a job, communicate cleaner, automate the stuff that made mistakes in the past, like become that orchestrator. I don't care what level you're at, out of high school, right? Or you've been doing it for 50 years, right? This is the greatest opportunity in human history. And I need you to believe that people need to employ you. People need you. Do not go into a dark corner like I did and just get in despair. Like, once I'm done with this project, I'm never going to get hired again. I've had those thoughts for real. And it's terrifying and it's disheartening. But then you take a breath and you're like, wait a minute, none of this can happen without my years of experience, my ability to talk to other humans, without a common mission, without my understanding why the tools work the way that they work, because I need, a planning phase and the build phase and a and a review phase and a go live phase. Like I know this stuff. AI might know it in some search engine, but it's never done that stuff before. And even if it has, it's different every time because we're always getting better, faster, harder, safer, new buildings, new bridges, new cures, new science, new playgrounds for kids. Like there's so many projects. There's never been a better time to be in project in our whole lives. It's creation time. I'm so excited. I just had this complete paradigm shift.
We can't tell that you're excited.
I'm asking for you guys to believe there's never been a better time to be in projects. That's all we're doing right now is creating and building, and we need you. So that would be my thought, and I want that for everybody out there. Please do not lose heart. It's the opposite. We're at the end of the tunnel with the light. This is it. We're here. Now there's, like Brandon said, we got to go out and learn it. But until you change that understanding of the market is actually the greatest opportunity we've ever had, until you get there, the rest of the stuff won't matter. That's my only ask.
I love it. And I love you're passionate. And I would say two things. One is that, yes, you as individuals, you need to go out and play with these tools, learn these tools, mess with these tools, do things with these tools. And leaders, you need to empower and equip your teams to do it, to learn it, give them the time, give them the autonomy to learn these things. And so like Ben does with us so that we know, and then we have these other, we all have things that we're good at, and then we have things that we're not so great at. And guess what? Now you have an AI agent that can do the things you're not great at. So, or that you don't really like to do. There's probably an AI for that. And so I want to be respectful of everybody's time because I think we could talk for a long time on this, but I appreciate you both being on here. Brandon, tell us, what do you teach? They can go to projectsuccessacademy.com. And what do you teach there?
Definitely. So if you go over to projectsuccessacademy.com, you'll see me. I do teach currently. I have some live courses for the PMP bootcamp. So the exam prep course, you can go there, which is the latest version from PMBOK, latest. And so go there. Also hold the ACP Agile Certified Practitioner. And so we're going to have some courses next year aimed towards Agile Certified Practitioner for the ACP, but currently the PMP courses are live.
Yeah, we're excited. You do such a great job with the PMP. We're excited to have you coming on in the first of the year doing some of the ACP. And you have exciting news that you and your beautiful wife, you have a baby coming. And so congratulations. Thank you for taking the time because I know it's very close. And so there's a lot of appointments and things. And so we appreciate your time. And we just appreciate you being a part of this organization with us and teaching and helping other people and bringing a perspective from the military side that we don't all have. I know we've got several of you, and it's just such a blessing. And so we appreciate you and thank you. And Ben, thank you for your time too.
Oh, it was fun. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
And thank you so much, team, for having me on. Ben, for taking the chance and bringing me onto the team too as well, and us continue to move forward, and Amanda too for facilitating this as well. So your flowers too.
Thank you.